Hi, Melissa.
Hi.
Hi. It's really lovely to meet you. I think you know that I knew Ellis,
Yeah.
and he was a very wonderful part of my teen years, and it's just for me a very special and wonderful treat that this film is being released now and that Ellis is going to have his day again. So thank you very much for that. Let's start off. I know that you were in your childhood when Joel was on the air. So what was at that time, how did you feel about the program? What did it mean to you? What did Ellis bring into your life?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having us. I feel like I should be interviewing you because I want to hear your stories about Ellis, but maybe we'll do that another time. I was very young when the Soul Show was on the air, but one of the best things about that moment in my life was that for some reason Ellis decided to live with us in our apartment on West End Avenue and 80th Street, right around the corner from Zabar's in New York for any New Yorkers out there. And it was so exciting because even though he had his own apartment on Fifth Avenue, he liked to come over and hang out with us and stay with us. And so it was always magical when Uncle Ellis came over. He would come over after the tapings of the show, and he would often bring people with him who had just appeared on the show. Now, of course, I was so young, I didn't recognize who they were. I didn't know about celebrities or famous people or anything like that. But I knew that he was magical. And there was something about his energy and something special about the people who were around him. And so that was very exciting. And I learned years later that I was, bouncing on James Earl Jones's knee, or that it was Clifton Davis and Melba Moore who just come over because he had helped to produce their show as well. Or even Betty Shabazz would come because she was very good friends with Ellis. And after, sadly, her husband, Malcolm X, was assassinated, he took very good care of her. And he would bring her over to our apartment with her children. And we'd be, I'd be running around playing with Malcolm X's kids under the table. And, not even thinking about that until later, years later, I'm like, what the heck? Was I really playing with Malcolm X's children? And now we're friends, of course, as adults. But this type of thing, this type of special moment was really imbued in me a sense of pride about being related to Ellis, being a Haizlip, but also recognizing that he was a very unique individual, and what he brought to the arts and how he changed the landscape of television was really significant. And so all of that inspired me to make this film. And I think now that it's finally coming out, we'll get to share this, again, this magical moment, but also this profound moment of change in America right now during another profound moment of change.
I think he would be very gratified and elated by the changes that are taking place now. It's interesting to me that you mentioned that as a child. I mean, you were in this company and you were not aware of the celebrity of it all. I too, when I was with, Ellis and my mom were card bridge partners at an ongoing weekly all-night bridge game at Novella Nelson's apartment, which I later took over on Bank Street. And I mean, people would drop by there as well. And I was never aware of their celebrity. That was not what they were about. And, thinking back like you, I mean, the enormity of those gatherings, the talent that gathered around Ellis, and the way in which everyone was just who they were and living up to their potential. And that's what he wanted. And that's what he brought to everyone, to all of the people who came in contact with him. In making the film, you dealt with all of the archival material from Soul. Were there any, and you did a marvelous job also kind of presenting the range of what that show was about, and that it was beyond entertainment. It was all about enlightenment rather than entertainment, or enlightenment through entertainment. But are there any moments that stand out particularly in your mind from all of the archival material that you dealt with that you can share with us?
Yes, the archival material is spectacular. First of all, we have to realize that we're covering a very tumultuous time, a very progressive time, many movements happening at the same time, from the anti-Vietnam War movement, the women's movement, the sort of post-civil rights push, the Black arts movement. All of these things were sort of converging together. And so I believe like Soul represents this brief harmonic convergence of all of these things. And what you see in the archive is representative of that. So you have 130 episodes between 1968 and 1973, and they're just so rich. It's like a time capsule. And seeing these young artists in their prime, and as you say, without artifice, without a notion of celebrity. Celebrity is really, this sort of culture of celebrity really has emerged in the last couple of decades, especially with the onset of social media and the digital universe we're in now. But there was something really authentic about Soul. People recognized at that moment that it was a chance to be free and to express themselves freely on a platform that up until that point had not really embraced Black culture, or certainly not the Black arts and the Black political body, or the African American diaspora as well. And so you're dealing with all of these almost, as I said before, converging ideas. And when you see that reflected in the archive, actually it became very difficult to decide what to put in the film and what to leave out of the film. We think of this as a continuum, and we're really just dropping into these little moments. Our decision to make the film 100, just under 100 minutes was based on trying to make sure it could be on broadcast television and also sort of a theatrical length. But if I'd had my way, I would have made a series, maybe a documentary series,
Yes.
because there's just so much. It's really vast. And what I hope is that this film will be somewhat of like a gateway drug into Soul, just sort of letting you scratch the surface of what is a really beautiful archive. And in terms of special moments, one of my favorite is the highlight of our film. And I think it's really like the high watermark of the series. And that is the interview between James Baldwin and Nikki Giovanni, which is just breathtaking. It's just, I almost have no words. Every time I see it, I discover something new. And we included a very long piece of that. I had to fight with my editors. We were duking it out because they were saying, it's too long, you need to cut it. We need to move on. I'm like, nobody is cutting Nikki Giovanni and James Baldwin on my watch. But it was a 2-hour episode, and it's so rich, and I'm so happy that it's finally getting a lot of attention. And one of my favorite artists is named Amanda Seales. She just recently hosted the BET Awards, and she's been on that show Insecure. She posted a clip of it last year that went viral. And by viral, I mean on Instagram, over 435,000 people were commenting and reposting, and then Essence picked it up, and For Harriet and Lena Waithe. And the comments were completely contemporary, regular people weighing in as if this was a conversation that was happening now. They weren't treating it as if it were some sort of precious gem from the 1970s. And that's when I knew this is so relatable. Everything in this show, but in particular that conversation with Baldwin and Giovanni, which is really like a lost gem and should be, out there for the public.
Do you think that there's a way of making the archives available to the public now? Would there be, is there a chance of doing that? Do you think it would be valuable? I would love to see that happen, frankly, because Seoul was a focal point. It really became kind of, I don't know how to put this exactly, but sort of a flag for Black culture. And as you say, I mean, it was the entire range. And I think that I'm not sure, and I'd love to know your opinion about this, but do you think that there is such a focal point now, that there's a lot of activity, but is there a focal point like Ellis Haizlip, or a gathering center like Ellis was at this time, and would the availability of that archive to the public provide something like that, do you think?
Well, that's a wonderful question, and I'm going to sort of try to answer in several parts. For one, I believe that the best thing about this show, the TV series itself, Soul, is that it was made for us by us. It was also made for public television at the moment when public television was actually becoming public, going from a local television show to the national television network of, it's not really a network, but all of the different public television stations around the country. And so here you have suddenly this voice that seems to represent New York emanating across the country and connecting with Black communities everywhere. And so that becomes really, really significant in terms of the African diaspora being represented on television. And so cut to today, when we actually do have the archive available, it has taken on a life of its own in a way on social media and on YouTube. But luckily there are several places where you can watch at least 20 episodes that have been digitized. One of them just showed up, and that is on Amazon Prime. So if you happen to be a Prime member, you can watch at least 10 or 15 episodes. Also, of course, PBS has their own version of streaming shows. It's called PBS Passport, which if you're a member of the PBS network stations, you can log on and watch it. And then there's another site called Shout Factory. And Shout Factory TV prides itself on a lot of sort of retro programming, so you can log on there for free. I'm hoping, knock on wood, that this film will reinvigorate an interest in the re-release of the actual archive to the public, because you almost have to be an academic or a scholar, which I became in my 10 years of research for the film, and trying to actually access those lost episodes and the episodes that are available to license to use. But actually the Library of Congress does have a certain collection, and the Smithsonian has a certain collection. Again, that's a research collection because it's the Ellis Haizlip papers, which are the compilation of the few that he was able to stash away in his personal collection. Those are now available. And what I'm asking, if they're listening especially, is for the new Smithsonian, the National African American Museum of History and Culture, National Museum of African American History and Culture, I would love for them to reinvigorate the collection that they already have. And I'm going to try to see if I can get them to bring some of the things that are in the Anacostia Smithsonian from Ellis's collection down to the mall and create a tribute to him there, or at least have him in the arts and cultural galleries on the 4th floor where he belongs. There's a wonderful exhibit of all of the television icons from Flip Wilson to Oprah. And I'm like, we just need a picture of Ellis right in there. There is a clip of him downstairs on one of the earlier floors. It's just a very short clip in a montage of Black Power television shows, including Black Journal and different things that were shown on the air at that time. But I believe that he's somewhat of an unsung hero, and it's time to bring his story to the forefront.
Agreed. What do you think, Ellis, were he able to speak now, what would he say about the current situation here and now, these times? I mean, it's been a long time, and in so many ways, it seems as though time has passed without there being any progress whatsoever. And in other ways, it seems like we're having a great explosion of possibility and opportunity. And it's difficult to kind of sort it out and figure out really where we are and where we need to go and how we can, because Ellis was a very, he was a force that brought, that he was like a magnet, like a force that, like a centrifugal force that brought everything together. And that is an element that we need very much, it seems to me, right now. So what do you think he would do or say to comment on that, to help that happen, to facilitate it?
I think one of the most interesting, profound characteristics of Ellis Haizlip is that he was an Afrofuturist before anyone had ever thought of or coined the term. He was always looking to the future for the betterment of our people, for the upliftment of our people, for the next opportunity. And so in that way, he was a part of this idea of institution building. And Ellis was there to help lay the groundwork for, like, the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, part of the New York Public Library. He had always envisioned that that needed to be so much more than just the Harlem Library, that it needed to be a mecca, a cultural mecca. And so when they hired him to be the head of cultural programming, and he was there in, like, early mid 80s, like 86, 87, I believe he first started, he brought this concept of soul from downtown to uptown and brought in people who would expand this sort of footprint and made them understand that it was really important to have a gathering space, to find ways to build community, to move things forward. And, because in the early days at the Schomburg, they didn't even have a theater, a performance space, any type of rotunda or anything. It was really just a library. And we would have to go to Aaron Davis Hall to have performances and gatherings. And so he really instilled in them this idea, this greater purpose, and that created the Schomburg that we have today. Same thing with different institutions and boards. He explained and created a need to build the arts and build the institution around the arts and the validation of Black arts. So he was one of the first board members of Alvin Ailey, and was the first to produce Alvin Ailey and to help him make the company perform overseas. Same thing with Bill T. Jones' company. He was like one of the first people on the board. So he was always about finding ways for Black people to express their excellence and move forward. And I think if we look at what's happening now, we're at this inflection point, and it's really the moment, with all due respect and bowed heads to those we've lost in the struggle and in the pandemic. It has been a very difficult time. I want to acknowledge that. And of course, the medical workers who are leading us through this. And at the same time, it feels like it's the birth of a beginning. It feels like there's room to grow, and there's room to recognize all of the racial and social injustices that we have shied away from. And I think Ellis would be very vocal and very visible with that. And he would use art as a platform to push the culture forward, which is what he always did. And that's what's so pioneering about his spirit and so trailblazing about his spirit. When you look back and you think, wow, he was really bold, doing things that hadn't happened, presenting people who'd never been seen, and demanding that we be treated equally, and that the perception of African American culture We need to expand. And so I think he would do the same for this moment. He would seize the moment. We wear our politics and our, gender representation, everything on our sleeves now. It's not as demure or as it used to be.
Yeah, I mean, this is an important moment. I think what you've done is important. And I am right around the corner from Zabar's. So
Well,
I want you to, yes, as soon as we get past this, please come in and join me here. And I'd really love to meet up with you and just kind of revel in the past with memories of Ellis. And I think that this film is going to bring an awareness to a lot of people. And I'm so happy to see that you've made it and made it so beautifully. I know that he would be pleased with the film.
Oh, thank you.
You've done a great job, and he would be the first person to thank you for it. So, and I thank you for it. And again, I hope that that a lot of people will see the film, understand what this legacy is, and bringing it up to date, carry it forth in the name of Ellis and everyone who was affiliated with Soul. Thank you very, very much, Melissa.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations. And it's wonderful to meet you this way. And I hope that we get to meet each other in person in the future.
I'm certain we will. And thank you so much. And for reminding all of us about that moment in time as well. And there's so few people left who know about those card parties, and that they were so significant that he wrote them down in his journal, like when he was going to play cards. So those journals are all in the Smithsonian now. Probably your name might be in them, but all of it has been documented. And I think that was the most important thing, that it was the beginning of something. And as he says in the film, although it's over, it's not the end. Black seeds keep on growing. And I think that is really our mantra for the day.